On today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10.
Seconded. The question is that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. Aye. Ayes have it.
Statement by Ministers none. Public Bill, second reading.
Honorable Dulab.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ce projet de loi qui vient créer un Optical Council of Mauritius pour réglementer et contrôler la profession d'opticien dans notre pays vient en réalité combler une lacune. Il existe en effet à l'île Maurice un nombre appréciable d'ordres professionnels, dont le plus connu est sans doute le Medical Council. Mais il existe aussi, par exemple, un Council of Registered Professional Engineers, un Professional Quantity Surveyors Council, an Allied Health Professionals Council, a Mauritius Council of Registered Librarians ou encore un Dental Council, qui ont pour fonction de faire respecter les règles et l'éthique professionnelle. Pour exercer, Monsieur le Président, vétérinaires, architectes, dentistes ou encore ingénieurs doivent s'inscrire au préalable auprès de leur ordre respectif qui vérifie que les professionnels possèdent les bons diplômes, mais les ordres ont également et surtout le pouvoir d'édicter un code de déontologie auquel les membres de la profession doivent se conformer. Monsieur le Président, nous sommes en 2021 et la profession d'opticien à Maurice n'a toujours pas de conseil de l'ordre. Pour la énième fois, et merci à ce gouvernement qui prend les devants afin de régulariser la profession des opticiens à Maurice. Celui que le gouvernement se propose de mettre sur pied permettra, primo, d'enregistrer les opticiens, secondo, de réglementer la conduite professionnelle de ces derniers, et tertio, d'œuvrer pour l'amélioration continue de la profession d'opticien en organisant des cours, des séminaires, des conférences, ainsi que des programmes de formation ponctuels ou continus pour les opticiens dont on ne mesure pas souvent l'importance de la profession. Sait-on par exemple que quand un opticien examine l'œil d'un patient et qu'il y détecte une pathologie quelconque, il a le devoir moral de référer son patient à un médecin pour des traitements complémentaires. Il existe, hélas, Monsieur le Président, dans notre pays, des praticiens avec pignon sur rue qui profitent de brèches dans la législation pour aussi engrosser et effectuer des examens plus ou moins douteux qui ne détectent pas des maladies qui nécessitent souvent des soins. Ces praticiens ne réfèrent pas par conséquent leurs patients à des professionnels de santé, notamment à des ophtalmologistes, pour des traitements médicaux importants et se concentrent plutôt sur des activités purement commerciales. Je précise, entre 3 à 5% des patients vus par des opticiens sont orientés vers des médecins après avoir détecté diverses pathologies, des cataractes, des conjonctivites chroniques, des hypertensions de la rétine ou encore des pressions oculaires élevées pouvant parfois être la cause de glaucome qui entraîne une perte progressive de la vision. Ce sont, Monsieur le Président, des affections sérieuses qui ne peuvent être traitées à la légère par des praticiens qui n'ont souvent ni la formation ni les compétences pour exercer la profession d'opticien. Même la prescription de lunettes est l'affaire de professionnels qui rappellent que dans un grand nombre de cas, les puissances prescrites sont approximatives. Les patients repartent alors avec des verres qui ne leur procurent pas une vision optimale et confortable, qui les exposent, qui plus est, à des complications éventuelles. La vision de loin ou de près peut être floue, déformée et inconfortable, ce qui influe directement sur la performance au travail devant un ordinateur. La conduite d'un véhicule, la manipulation de machines parfois dangereuses ou encore sur le travail à l'école. Des lunettes bien réalisées, humbles mais fonctionnelles, redonnent aux personnes âgées la confiance, la mobilité et l'indépendance dont elles ont besoin. Cette tâche, Monsieur le Président, doit être l'affaire d'opticiens ou d'ophtalmologues parfaitement formés et responsables. Monsieur le Président, il y va également de la vision des futures générations de Mauriciens. Une bonne vision est essentielle pour une scolarité réussie et épanouie. On oublie souvent que 80% de l'apprentissage d'un enfant passe par sa vision. Bien souvent, les enfants ne réalisent pas qu'ils sont confrontés à des problèmes de vue et peuvent alors trouver tout à fait normal de vivre avec une vision floue ou altérée. Or, les conséquences d'une vision altérée chez l'enfant ne sont pas à négliger. Si des défauts visuels des enfants ne sont pas dépistés, cela peut compromettre le bon déroulement des processus d'apprentissage et créer des difficultés d'attention ou de concentration, une irritabilité excessive ou un désintérêt précoce pour la lecture. Seul un opticien ou un ophtalmologue qualifié peut détecter un éventuel problème visuel et trouver la meilleure solution pour y remédier par des prescriptions adaptées. L'Optical Association de l'île Maurice, en collaboration avec le ministère de l'Éducation et la Standard Chartered Bank dans le passé, a procédé du reste à une opération dans les écoles pour dépister des problèmes de vision chez les enfants du primaire, car il y a en effet effectivement un lien direct entre les problèmes visuels et les difficultés scolaires ou le décrochage. J'en profite pour adresser mes remerciements au gouvernement, au ministre des Finances en particulier, qui a annoncé dans le budget que des lunettes seront offertes gratuitement aux enfants jusqu'à l'âge de 18 ans et inscrits sous le régime SRM. Je voudrais aussi faire ressentir que les opticiens fournissent également des lentilles de contact à de nombreux patients. La fourniture inappropriée de lentilles de contact par des profanes peut entraîner des troubles oculaires graves et parfois irréversibles, menaçant la vue. L'adaptation à des lentilles de contact doit être suivie d'un service après-vente approprié par des personnes qualifiées, capables d'assurer des traitements d'affection oculaire afin de préserver le capital visuel et d'améliorer le confort oculaire et la qualité de vie de chacun des patients. C'est pour toutes ces raisons que le pays doit se doter d'un conseil de l'ordre des opticiens. Ce dernier fournira à la profession la base nécessaire en matière d'éthique et de pratique professionnelle pour lui permettre d'inculquer à ses membres des normes déontologiques au diapason des évolutions technologiques, mais rappellera aussi aux praticiens que, dans tous les aspects de sa vie professionnelle, toutes les décisions qu'il est amené à prendre et tous les conseils qu'il peut donner ont des conséquences qui ont elles-mêmes des implications d'ordre moral. Des normes déontologiques, un encadrement et une réglementation sont indispensables aux professions dont la survie dépend du soutien de l'opinion publique. Elles sont ainsi mieux outillées pour maintenir leur réputation de fiabilité et d'utilité. J'ajoute que les codes de déontologie, dont les conseils de l'ordre sont à la fois les promoteurs et gardiens, peuvent aussi être une aide lorsqu'un membre de la profession est accusé d'avoir commis une faute professionnelle ou qu'il fait l'objet d'accusations ou de poursuites judiciaires. S'il peut prouver qu'il a respecté le code de déontologie de la profession, il est probable que l'on considérera qu'il a exercé sa profession conformément aux normes applicables en la matière. Permettez que je plaide, Monsieur le Président, avant de conclure, pour une décentralisation qui permettrait un accès plus facile à des services ophtalmologiques et d'optique dans le pays, peut-être dans les hôpitaux régionaux par exemple. Devoir se déplacer jusqu'à Moka pour un problème oculaire parfois simple mais urgent n'est pas pratique pour beaucoup. Monsieur le Président, d'autant que, même dans le privé, obtenir un rendez-vous avec un ophtalmologue est de plus en plus difficile, voire pas disponible dans la soirée. Le Optical Council Bill, Monsieur le Président, est un des rares projets de loi qui offre l'occasion d'élaborer sur des notions qu'on aborde rarement dans l'hémicycle. Il est question aujourd'hui d'optique et d'éthique. On croit souvent avoir une bonne vision des choses, et puis un jour, par accident, ou parce qu'une infime poussière en forme de préjugés ou de certitude est venue gêner l'œil de notre entendement. On se dit que nos instruments optiques mentaux, c'est-à-dire nos opinions, nos préconceptions, nos habitudes, ne sont peut-être pas si neutres, nets et transparents que ça, et qu'ils viennent modifier à notre insu la manière dont nous percevons les choses et les gens. Dans sa dioptrique publiée par René Descartes pour compléter son discours de la méthode en 1637, le mathématicien, physicien, philosophe français nous enseigne que, loin d'être source d'illusions, lentilles et lunettes sont le meilleur moyen de lutter contre celles-ci. Nous voyons techniquement le vrai que nous ne voyons pas naturellement, nous dit Descartes. Avec les progrès de l'optique au siècle classique, l'invisible se mit à reculer, tandis qu'avançait le visible dans l'infiniment grand comme dans l'infiniment petit, vers les satellites de Jupiter comme vers les araignées et les mouches. Il s'agissait bien à l'époque d'une véritable transformation de la perception des choses qui estompa la frontière entre visible et invisible. La révolution de la vision était aussi la révolution de la vision du monde. Et puis arriva Spinoza, celui qu'on a appelé le Mozart de la philosophie, qui nous apprend à être lucides sur nous-mêmes pour nous réorienter vers ce qui nous fait du bien. Spinoza écrit l'Éthique, un ouvrage philosophique monumental qui élabore une nouvelle définition du sage et de la sagesse. Spinoza, Monsieur le Président, exerçait le métier de polisseur de lentilles utilisées en optique. Il part à la reconquête de la clarté et cherche pour cela la meilleure lunette possible, celle qui nous permet de contempler la vérité. Et la vérité, que l'on veuille ou pas, c'est aussi que ce gouvernement travaille jour et nuit et il means business. C'est la raison pour laquelle le métier qui permettait à Spinoza de gagner sa vie vaut métaphore pour la démarche philosophique dans son ensemble. Et si la vue était aussi un sens d'éthique, j'espère que nous pouvons maintenant y voir un peu plus clair, compris ceux de l'autre côté de la Chambre qui, malheureusement, bien souvent, ne voient pas dans la même direction. L'orateur qui m'a précédé sur ce projet de loi, Monsieur le Président, je cite, mentionne que a glance at the fourth schedule does not mention exemption of those being recognized by the General Optical Council of UK. Je continue, however, there is no mention about those of BTS en optique lunetier in France, which is delivered by French authorities, and the sole recognition of qualification to practice the optical profession in France. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think it is very clear that the honourable member has not gone through the amendments to be brought to this bill already circulated in the House last week. The honourable member may rest assured on the fact that this government, through all its action and decisions, remains guided by equity to all. This is the very reason why the fourth schedule of this bill was deleted last week itself. The aim here, as the Minister of Health and Wellness stated, is to put all our Mauritian children at the same level playing field. We do not wish to discriminate on the basis of which university a student attended to. As from now, the Optical Council, which is being proposed, will have the responsibility to organize examinations whereby all students, irrespective of their universities they attended to, will be given the chance to go through examinations so as to provide each and every one of them equal chances to prove their worth. Of course, examinations will also help in ascertaining that these students are of good level and thus at the same time guaranteeing that the practice of optics in Mauritius remains at acceptable standards. Je voudrais, pour terminer, Monsieur le Président, remercier le ministre de la Santé qui, en dépit de tout ce qu'il a dû gérer depuis que cette pandémie a touché nos rivages, a trouvé le temps. Oui, effectivement, il a trouvé le temps pour proposer ce projet de loi à la Chambre, tandis que certains, pendant de longues années, alors qu'ils étaient au pouvoir, en temps normal, n'en ont pas vu la nécessité. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Honorable Gibal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président, de me permettre de m'exprimer sur un sujet qui mérite bien qu'on s'y attarde. Monsieur le Président, la réglementation de la profession des opticiens à travers la présentation du Optical Council Bill, où l'objectif premier de ce Conseil doit être l'enregistrement des opticiens lunetiers, ainsi qu'établir un code de déontologie pour ses membres. Monsieur le Président, nous avons constaté ces dernières années que des cabinets d'opticiens lunetiers ont poussé un peu partout comme des champignons à travers l'île, d'où l'importance d'instituer une instance régulatrice pour un meilleur contrôle. Même si nous avons déjà une petite idée qui sera nommée à la tête du Optical Council, nous espérons que le choix des autres membres se fera sans favoritisme. Monsieur le Président, que ce nouveau texte de loi arrive à un moment où la population se pose beaucoup de questions sur les réelles motivations du gouvernement lorsque ce dernier avance un pion, éveillant parfois méfiance chez les citoyens, mais mon incompréhension face à cette nouvelle législation se situe surtout au niveau de la volonté du ministre d'avoir une mainmise sur ce Conseil. En effet, à la section 7.2 de ce texte de loi, nous notons que le ministre s'investit les pouvoirs de nommer 5 personnes au sein d'un Conseil composé de 15 membres. Et si on y ajoute à cette liste, Monsieur le Président, le représentant du PMO et celui de l'Attorney General Office, le ministre aura sous son contrôle 7 membres de ce Conseil, ce qui représente presque que la moitié du Optical Council. De ce fait, Monsieur le Président, la question de l'indépendance d'un tel Conseil se pose aussi lorsque nous constatons qu'il est stipulé à la section 16 de ce texte de loi qui décrit the powers of minister. Selon les prévisions de cette section de loi, le ministre de la Santé peut, je cite, « give such direction or general character to the Council not inconsistent with the Act as he considers necessary in the public interest, and the Council shall comply with those directions and may require the Council to furnish any information or document in relation to its activities, and the Council shall supply such information or document. » Fin de citation. D'où cette question, Monsieur le Président, pourquoi le ministre doit-il s'octroyer tant de pouvoirs? Pourquoi ce Conseil des opticiens, comme tous les autres conseils qui se sont mis en place, ne peut pas fonctionner en toute indépendance? Monsieur le Président, une Optician Act a été votée en Angleterre, puis amendée en 2005. Et je dois dire, it's just a click on Google, que l'honorable ministre de la Santé a pu s'en inspirer pour rédiger ce texte de loi qu'il nous propose aujourd'hui. Monsieur le Président, il est vrai que ce secteur, comme tous les autres secteurs du pays, du reste, a besoin de garde-fous pour bien fonctionner. D'abord parce que le secteur de l'optique est en plein essor. Mais il y règne, Monsieur le Président, une concurrence féroce, pitoyable et parfois déloyale qui fait de plus en plus de victimes au sein de la population. Et certains de mes mandants m'ont fait comprendre qu'ils ont été victimes de cette concurrence déloyale. Non seulement ils ont été payés le prix fort, sans compter les effets négatifs sur la santé des yeux qui s'avèrent, Monsieur le Président, capital à toutes les étapes de la vie. Les professionnels qui ont ainsi à leur charge de la santé des yeux de nos concitoyens doivent aussi assumer leurs responsabilités lorsqu'il y a des fautes commises et des négligences. Monsieur le Président, il y a à Maurice plus de 10 000 personnes qui se feraient traiter de la cataracte, soit 5 442 exactement, rien que dans les centres de santé publics, selon les chiffres disponibles de statistiques of Mauritius datant malheureusement de 2018. Ce qui représente un marché important et nombreux sont les patients qui sont la proie des charlatans d'ici et d'ailleurs. Et je fais remarquer dans ce pas qu'à la section 19, que le secteur de l'optique mauricien sera ouvert aux étrangers par le biais du Temporary Registration of Foreign Opticians. Ainsi, il nous faut, Monsieur le Président, des règlements adéquats pour aussi protéger les professionnels locaux de ce secteur. Par ailleurs, Monsieur le Président, j'aimerais évoquer un autre sujet de l'actuel projet de loi où il est stipulé dans la section 42.4, je cite, « Any person who is convicted on an offence shall be liable to fine not exceeding 10,000 rupees and imprisonment for a term not exceeding 12 months. » Fin de citation. Mr. Speaker, sir, 10,000 rupees fine for a professional who has committed an offence such as negligence is, from my opinion, my personal opinion, unacceptable. The amount should be set at least at 500,000 as it will be a better deterrent for all opticians who are minded to infringe the law. Monsieur le Président, de mon côté, je suis outré, à se demander, sidéré, outré, à se demander comment est-ce possible qu'un citoyen ait à payer 500 000 roupies d'amende pour le non-port du masque, parallèlement à un opticien qui a fauté, qui a commis une négligence, causant dans certains cas des dégâts, voire un handicap conséquent chez un patient, n'écope que de 10 000 roupies d'amende. Cet état de choses est inadmissible, Monsieur le Président. Il faut que le ministre, à tout prix, amende cette section de la loi afin de protéger nos citoyens et dans le même temps, les professionnels de ce secteur feront plus attention. Et je suis certain qu'en durcissant la loi à ce niveau, les Mauriciens vont bénéficier d'un meilleur service. Mr. Speaker, sir, at the very outset, I must say it's an obligation from the authorities to regulate the fast-growing optical sector in Mauritius, as according to some indicators, the optical market generates a global turnover of around 400 to 500 million annually. That shows us, Mr. Speaker, sir, the importance to set proper standards. Regulations, Mr. Speaker, sir, are set to make sure that all parties play the same rules and thus protect us as citizens against any malpractices. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I personally welcome this piece of legislation. Most of all, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Optical Council Bill is meant to regulate the profession of optician. Hence, the right signal should be sent to bring also confidence, but not fear, among the population. The citizens of Mauritius who are watching and listening to this assembly today must surely be asking themselves, what should we expect? Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to conclude by saying that nominations should be made on a basis of meritocracy, that people with good credentials be allowed to sit on this new council and working in the best interests of the professional in this sector. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to protect the consumer of Mauritius. I'm done, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honourable members, I have allowed the Honourable Prime Minister to make a statement out of turn. Honourable Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for giving me permission to make this statement. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to make a statement on the topical issue of increase in the retail prices of goods and commodities, which has recently been the subject of comments from some members of the House and also from representatives of consumer protection associations and trade unions. With the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic and its rapid spread in early 2020, global human mobility was largely affected, causing significant disruptions worldwide. By March 2020, when the COVID-19 first touched Mauritius, international air travel had come to almost a standstill. Air, ground, and sea transportation of goods had also considerably slowed down, and many countries worldwide had imposed export restrictions. The result was that the global supply chain and the volume of goods were severely affected on the international market. These restrictions also highlighted the complexity and cross-border interconnectedness of labor markets, economies, value chains and supply chains, and the dependence of some sectors on cross-border mobility. The widespread of the COVID-19 pandemic across the world has impacted on economic sectors. This has resulted in market imbalances for the supply of commodities. Demand and supply have changed. Volatility in prices pertaining to import, export, production, supply, and consumption has increased. Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius, being a commodity-dependent economy, has been exposed to structural vulnerabilities and to commodity price dynamics. There are already 27 products under price control in Mauritius, of which 9 are under the maximum price regime, 17 under the maximum markup regime, and 1 under the maximum recommended retail price regime. These include scheduled bread, basmati rice, milk powder, fertilizers, blood glucose strips, canned sardines, flour, corned beef, gas cylinders, corn mutton, dual-purpose kerosene, face mask, mogas and gas oil, hand sanitizers, potatoes, imported fresh fruits, onions, infant milk powder, long grain rice, pharmaceutical products, pilchards, dol petit pois, dol gramme, lentilles noires, lentilles rouges, gros pois, specialized face masks, sanitary pads, sanitary tampons, and sanitary towels. As a responsible government, while we were doing everything that we should to protect the population and contain the spread of the contamination, we were also following up closely on both the external and internal shocks to our economy in general, and by extension, to the impact of these shocks in the retail sector. Immediately, in April 2020 itself, government introduced a first measure of price control in order to protect the consumers and prevent profiteering by putting not less than 22 products under price control, including products like onions and potatoes, basmati rice, breakfast cereals, butter, baby and adult diapers, sanitary pads and pulses. As a result of that measure, the situation stabilized and it was possible to protect the purchasing power of the consumer and prevent massive increases in prices. When later, in July 2020, as we were getting out of the first confinement and the situation was gradually improving, the price control measure was lifted. But government continued to monitor the situation through market surveillance and inspection. Between 1st of July 2020 to 15th of June 2021, more than 17,000 checks and inspections were carried out in trade premises, and more than 1,300 contraventions were established, mostly for practice of higher prices or for not affixing prices. When we entered into the second confinement in March 2021, We continued to follow up the situation, and in April 2021, we found that it was necessary to further protect consumers by bringing pulses and sardines under price control. That was done accordingly. Mr. Speaker, sir, however, in spite of these measures at domestic level, Mauritius continued to be affected by external shocks. The continuous appreciation of the major foreign trading currencies, the shortage of raw material in certain cases, the longer maritime routes, the increase in freight and insurance have continuously impacted on our imports and have brought the importation costs to unprecedented heights. That has resulted into increases in the retail price of many products and commodities. All the projections and forecasts indicate that this situation may persist for some time more. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is no visibility on when the situation could get better. Government has therefore considered it necessary to intervene to restore the purchasing power of consumers and protect them against any future upward movement of foreign exchange. Government has decided to bring the following products, which are essential ones and which are widely consumed by the whole population under price control. Canned fish, that is sardines and pilchards, canned tomatoes, cheese, edible oil, pulses, margarine, and milk powder. I am tabling the list of these 7 products and their indicative current and proposed price, as well as their current subsidy per unit. Under these 7 generic products, a total of 243 specific brands and trademarks are concerned. This measure will allow consumers to access and buy their products at almost the same price which was practiced in retail in January 2021. In addition, because of the uncertain future, government has decided to lock the new revised prices for a period of 6 months until the end of the year. Mr. Speaker, sir, while we do so and we protect the consumers, we need to make sure that importers, distributors, and retailers do not bear the brunt of that measure. Concerned as we are to strike a right balance between the importers and distributors on the one hand and the consumers on the other, government will provide a subsidy to the importers and distributors through the Mauritius Revenue Authority. The price control measure will cost around 500 million rupees and will be fully funded by government. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a responsible and caring government, we will not allow the population to suffer. We will always do what it takes in order to try to protect the consumers and the population at large. This is what we pledge to do, and this is what we are doing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Dr. the Honorable Raoul.
Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable members of the House, it is a privilege for me to address and participate in the debate regarding the Optical Council Bill, and I would like to congratulate my colleague, the Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Honorable Kailesh Jagatpal, for presenting the Optical Council Bill to the House. Regarding the title of the bill, we would not blame anyone if the first thing that came to mind is about vision. It's about ability to see. But Honorable Third Member of Constituency Number 2 stated in his speech, I quote, "The possible setting of outlets will jeopardize the retail optical sector. A proper framework of same must be discussed with the Optical Association of Mauritius to avoid unfair competitive interests. I must admit that I am quite surprised by Honorable Third Member of Constituency Number 2 saying that more opticians will jeopardize the retail optical sector and that it will create a situation of unfair competitive interests. According to the logic of the Honorable Member, and allow me to take his own example, a gynecologist who has medical practices in several private clinics create a situation of unfair competitive interest as compared to another gynecologist who has only managed to secure private practice in one private clinic. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill will, on contrary, allow for more fair competition in the sector, and this will be in the best interest of our citizens. On the contrary, there are a number of reasons that you possibly never considered as to why our eyes are so important. The human body has 5 senses: the sight, the touch, the hearing, the taste, and the smell. According to a global survey conducted, 61% agreed that out of the 5 senses, they could not give up their sight. Only 70% of adults claim that losing their eyesight would have the greatest impact on everyday life. Monsieur le Président, le but de l'Optical Council Bill est d'assurer la création d'un Optical Council. C'est là afin de mieux régulariser la profession des opticiens à Maurice. L'œil étant l'organe récepteur de la vision, il est un organe de plus important, mais également complexe et fragile. L'œil est relié au cerveau et joue le rôle d'appareil photographique. En effet, il reçoit et transforme les vibrations de la lumière en influx nerveux transmis au cerveau. Avec la surutilisation d'appareils électroniques qui entraînent de la fatigue oculaire, des maux de tête et des troubles du cycle du sommeil, il est primordial de prendre soin de nos yeux si nous souhaitons continuer à bénéficier de ces appareils en préservant notre confort visuel. De tous les appareils numériques, savez-vous que le téléphone intelligent est perçu comme ayant l'impact le plus négatif sur la vision, suivi de très près par l'ordinateur? L'œil est un organe qui peut facilement être endommagé. Il faut en prendre soin, Monsieur le Président. Une façon simple et efficace est de passer un examen de la vue régulièrement, et seul un professionnel de la vue peut faire un diagnostic de santé visuelle complet et vous guider vers un choix éclairé des montures et des verres qui sera adapté à vous et à votre vision. La situation la plus fréquente est lors de la conduite. Une mauvaise vision peut ralentir considérablement le temps de réaction et entraîner des conséquences dangereuses. Un conducteur sur 5 ne voit pas clairement la route en raison d'une vue non corrigée. L'éblouissement, de jour comme de nuit, est l'inconfort visuel le plus préoccupant et ralentit la détection et le temps de réaction des conducteurs. Mr. Speaker, sir, henceforth the Optical Council Bill will replace the Optical Registration Act and hence will provide recognized status for opticians by providing the registration to promote a higher standard and to better regulate the profession. This will protect the public against any untrained and unregistered individuals. The object of the bill is to provide for the establishment of the Optical Council of Mauritius with a view to better regulating the profession of opticians. Mr. Speaker, sir, first of all, I will emphasize the difference between an ophthalmologist, an optometrist, and an optician. An ophthalmologist is a medical doctor specializing in disease of the eye, whereas an optometrist is a doctor who does the examination and evaluates visual acuity and writes the prescriptions. The doctors are being registered at the Medical Council of Mauritius. On the other side, An optician, also called as a dispensing optician, is someone who makes, sells, or fits the eyeglasses or contact lenses, frames artificial eyes to the intended wearer on written prescription form, and a duly registered optometrist who is registered as a medical counsel. The optician needs to interpret the prescription. He needs to adapt, fit, and adjust the same for the aid or correction of visual or ocular anomalies of the human eye. The dispensing optician shall advise the intended wearer at the time that the contact lenses are delivered to return to the optometrist for evaluation and follow-up care. Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill will bring down all illegal operators. That is detrimental for the good reputation of ophthalmologists, optometrists, and opticians. Various complaints were voiced out for several years, and those operators who were able to pass through the nets and obtain a license to operate from the local authorities to open their businesses. This without having the necessary qualifications, the necessary professional qualifications, skills, and experience. This led to situations where patients were found with inappropriate glasses for their viewing problems. With the implementation of the optical bill, any person with no qualifications and duly registered to the optical council won't be allowed to open an optical shop and won't be allowed to sell glasses. Mr. Speaker, sir, research has shown the importance of ensuring that only appropriately trained and qualified registrants are carrying out restricted activities to minimize the risk to public health and safety. Without appropriate legislation, there is a real public safety risk. Regulation ensures that dispensing opticians have an appropriate level of education and training on an ongoing basis through the CPD courses to minimize the risk outlined above. These changes included targeting education and training to the areas of risk and competencies relevant to scope of practice and a requirement for a registered optician. The new statutory regulation ensures that dispensing opticians are appropriately trained to carry out their scope of practice. Mr. Speaker, sir, the general interest objective is pursued in a consistent and systematic manner. The regulation of dispensing optician is directly comparable with other healthcare professionals in the country. All of the other healthcare regulators in Mauritius are already under the scrutiny of the Professional Standards Authority, having already their own statutory registers. Mr. Speaker, sir, likewise, the Medical Council Act, the Dental Council Act, and recently enacted Veterinary Act, the Optical Council Bill, will regulate the profession and hence provide a better legal framework for both the patient and the optician. The main function of the bill, number one, set standard for optical education, training, performance, and conduct. Number two, approve qualification for registration as opticians. Number three, maintain a register of individuals who are registered and carry on business. Number four, maintain the standard of opticians by continuing professional development programs, courses, seminars, lectures, or conferences. Number five, deal with complaints and investigate in malpractice in the profession. And number six, protect the public by promoting advancement of opticians and establish code of practice on a standard of professional conduct and ethics. The role of the Council will register all opticians as well as non-citizen resident of Mauritius. They will be provided with a temporary registration as foreign or visiting opticians. The Council will consist of a chairperson elected among all 10 members, out of which 3 opticians from the public sector and 5 from the private sector, with a minimum of 7 years experience. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Council shall be a body corporate. The objects of the Council shall regulate the professional conduct of the opticians and promote the advancement of opticians. In order to guarantee a strict control on the practice of optometry in Mauritius, it is important to set clear regulations as to who can evaluate visual acuity, dispense optical appliances, interpret prescriptions, or even counsel patients. To that effect, Section 17.2 of the initial circulated bill has been deleted. The House will also note that some Mauritian professionals trained abroad sometimes come from universities in countries where there is no authority or body regulating the optical professions. From that perspective, Section 18.1c of the bill is therefore unfair to professionals coming from such jurisdiction. This section has also been deleted from the bill so as to give all future applicants a fair chance to be registered by the Council and practice in Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Council shall approve, organize, or cause to be organized training programs, courses, lectures, seminars, or conferences for the profession of opticians. It is to promote continuous education and training in the field. Mr. Speaker, sir, the newly formed Council should maintain an up-to-date register. The Register of the Council should keep a register of opticians, foreign opticians, and visiting opticians, or such other register as may be necessary in such form and manner as the Council may determine. The register shall enter in the register the name, address, qualifications, and other particulars of every optician. Shall also any change in his particulars. And when there is an optician, a foreign optician or visiting optician is suspended or deregistered, an annotation to that effect. And lastly, such other particulars as the Council may determine. Moreover, the Council may investigate into any complaint or professional misconduct or negligence against an optician. Where the Council investigates into a complaint under subsection 1, it shall notify the optician whose conduct, act, or omission is under investigation of the nature of the complaint against him. The member of the Council may visit or inspect the premises where the alleged professional misconduct or negligence has occurred, may summon and may hear the optician who shall be given an opportunity of being assisted by a legal representative of his choice, may summon and hear witnesses, may call for the communication or production of any relevant record, document or article, and shall submit its report not later than 3 months as from the date the investigation starts. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me conclude on those thoughts and advice. Ne sous-estimez jamais l'importance de vos yeux. Que vous regardez les yeux d'un être cher ou conduisez votre voiture sur une route, vos yeux sont votre fenêtre sur le monde, vous permettant de vivre chaque moment. Si vous croyez avoir besoin de lunettes ou d'une nouvelle ordonnance, n'attendez pas. Prenez les mesures nécessaires avant de vous assurer de voir au mieux chaque instant. Une approche préventive de soins oculaires peut avoir un impact positif important sur votre qualité de vue. Ainsi, une bonne santé visuelle relève bien plus qu'une vision claire. Puisque vos yeux sont une fenêtre sur votre santé, un examen de la vue peut sauver votre vie. En effet, un professionnel de la vue peut détecter plusieurs problèmes de santé dans votre corps, tels que le diabète, certains cancers, les maladies thyroïdiennes et l'hypertension. Dépistées rapidement par les yeux, ces maladies peuvent être traitées avant qu'elles ne deviennent problématiques. La bonne nouvelle est que 75% des pertes de vision peuvent être traitées ou évitées grâce à des soins oculaires appropriés. D'où l'importance de passer un examen de la vue fréquemment et d'avoir une loi réglementée pour la profession des opticiens. Pour terminer, laissez-moi conclure pour dire que nous, au gouvernement, nous travaillons dur au jeu de la population. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Honorable Damien, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to contribute to the debate on the Optical Council Bill, which is an essential piece of legislation to regulate the optometry profession. Members of this profession are called upon to play a pivotal role and bring their precious contribution to uphold public health and promote safety. The profession of opticians is at present regulated by the Opticians Registration Act of 1962. Today, we are at the dawn of the third decade of the 21st century. Nearly 60 years have lapsed, and the optician service is still being governed by legislation which has undergone one amendment only, that is in 1985, especially when there have been so many technological changes in that profession. I think the current legislation has stood its test of time, and now it's high time for a total revamping and to usher in a new legislation to modernize the optician service and to meet the challenges in the optician sector. Here, I wish to extend my congratulations to Honorable Kailash Jagapal, Minister of Health and Wellness, for coming up with this bill, which provides a more modern and flexible legislative framework to regulate and control more effectively the profession of opticians in the country. The primary objective of this bill is to provide for the establishment of the Optical Council of Mauritius with a view to regulating better the profession of opticians. The Council will, among others, regulate and control the profession of opticians, register opticians, regulate the professional conduct of opticians. It will also promote the advancement of opticians through training and continuous learning. Monsieur le Président, l'objectif de ce projet de loi est d'accorder un statut aux opticiens, qui est reconnu à juste titre en leur fournissant un enregistrement afin de promouvoir un niveau élevé de formation professionnelle et de conduite parmi les opticiens. Et ce faisant, de protéger le public contre les activités de personnes non qualifiées et non formées qui se font passer pour des opticiens. À l'heure actuelle, n'importe qui peut s'appeler opticien ou exercer la profession d'opticien même s'il n'est absolument pas qualifié. Certains peuvent examiner les yeux ou fournir des lunettes sans aucune formation. Il y a un certain nombre de personnes non qualifiées qui le font. Ce sont surtout des amateurs itinérants qui se disent opticiens, prétendent tester les yeux et fournir des lunettes, souvent bien inutiles, à des prix exorbitants. Il y a des preuves du mal causé par ces personnes. Et il est grand temps de réglementer la profession d'opticien par la promulgation du Conseil d'opticien. Mr. Speaker, sir, the studies leading to the optical profession, whether it is ophthalmologist, optician, or lunetier, require several years of arduous study and hard work. As we are all aware, today the profession is being governed by the Optical Registration Act and requires registration with the Ministry of Health in order to be able to practice. It is very likely that some people have been able to slip through the cracks and obtain an operating permit from local authorities in order to be able to open their businesses even without the necessary diplomas, skills, and experience. As a consequence, some customers may have found themselves with glasses not suitable for their vision problems. A dozen of such companies were pinned down by the police. Some have been forced to close their shops, while others are still operating pending a judgment from the court. It is high time that we put an end to such a mess. This bill is very clear, and those who do not have the necessary skills to sell glasses will not be able to operate. While this bill will tend to eliminate all quacks and mere sellers of spectacles, it will at the same time be able to establish and register a body of professionals with a standard of qualifications and who will ensure a more effective and efficient optician services to the people. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are quite a significant number of unqualified opticians in our country. Who are these unqualified opticians? They are first of all, those who make no attempt at sight testing, but simply provide spectacles without any prescription. There are a large number of mere vendors of spectacles who have neither the instruments nor the ability to test sight patients. There are many other so-called opticians who are not qualified, but have had a long experience in this profession, given that they might not have been able to satisfy the criterion to qualify as a professional in the optical sector. This bill naturally aims at eliminating the so-called amateurs in the optical business and protect the population. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill lays down penalties for anyone who pretends to be a registered optician. It will prohibit any unregistered person from calling himself an ophthalmic optician, a dispensing optician, a registered optician, or an enrolled optician. It prevents one from calling himself or herself an optician without prefix or suffix. Any person who is found guilty for such offences shall be liable to a fine of not exceeding 10,000 rupees and to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 12 months. Monsieur le Président, je crois certainement que dans ces circonstances, il est très important d'encourager la profession de l'optique et de lui donner la possibilité de développer son propre service éducatif et de construire ses propres normes professionnelles. Si nous le faisons, ce sera une protection pour le public. Si nous permettons à la profession de l'optique d'améliorer ses normes, sa formation, ses conditions d'accès à la profession sous le contrôle public d'un conseil de l'optique, nous protégerons alors les droits de nos citoyens. Monsieur le Président, le danger, comme tout le monde le sait, et plusieurs personnes l'ont mentionné avant moi, est que des personnes non qualifiées et imparfaitement qualifiées peuvent être incapables de diagnostiquer des défauts organiques profondément ancrés dans l'œil et peuvent également ne pas être en mesure de les signaler, comme elles devraient le faire, à des chirurgiens ophtalmologistes dûment qualifiés. Une formation adéquate qui a été prévue dans le projet de loi, me semble-t-il, donnerait une protection au public. Les personnes qualifiées seront en mesure d'observer ces signes avant-coureurs et de les signaler au bon quartier. Ils auraient une meilleure assurance que par le passé, lorsqu'ils ont eu recours, comme beaucoup d'entre nous sont obligés de le faire, à un service qui n'est pas pleinement qualifié sur le plan médical. Ils obtiendront un service sur lequel ils peuvent compter pour être avertis à tout moment où ils devraient consulter un médecin. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say in conclusion that the eye is among the important organs of our body, and the eyesight of any individual is so essential that there is no physical defect that is so tragic as the loss of the eyesight. The question today is neither the quite proper sensitiveness of the qualified, nor the livelihood of the unqualified. It is the broader interests of the welfare of the community as a whole. It is therefore a matter of great national importance that we should have a body of skilled professional opticians with the required qualifications to provide higher standard services. I have no doubt that the provision in this bill will bring the landmark changes required to the professionals in this domain. I therefore fully support the provisions in this bill and have no doubt that all members in the House will go in this direction for the welfare and well-being of the Mauritian nation. Long live the Republic of Mauritius. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
Mr. Speaker, sir, listening to honourable members who intervened before me, especially on the other side of the House, one would have the impression that the optical sector in Mauritius is unregulated. One would have the impression that anyone can practice sightseeing, can practice dispensing medication, can examine eyes, can prescribe drugs. But this is not the case, Mr. Speaker, sir. We already have a law, the Optician Registration Act, as far back as 1962. And Section 5 of this law provides that no person, unless registered, shall practice sight testing, dispensing for or without reward, carry on the business as optician, take or use any name, title, addition, or description implying that he is registered under the Act. And it is a criminal offense under Section 11 of that Act to contravene this section. So we already have a law to regulate the sector. It's not like Honorable Dulab say, that now we need a council to regulate opticians. There's already a registrar. There's already a board, the Optician Registration Board. What does that board do? That board already register optician. That board already conduct examination for opticians who want to be qualified. But more importantly, that board has the power to deregister opticians who are convicted of offense involving fraud and dishonesty, or after due inquiry is adjudged by the board to have been guilty of infamous or disgraceful conduct in a professional capacity. So we should not come and try to say that for all these years, no government before this one has ever cared about opticians or tried to regulate the sector. Since as far back as 1962, pre-independence, there is a law protecting the public from people who are not authorized to dispense services, test eyesight, prescribe spectacles. Now, we all agree that this law of 1962 has to be updated. And the law that is before this House, the bill that is before this House today, is modeled principally after the Allied Health Professional Council Act, which we adopted in 2017. So we are generally comfortable with these provisions of the bill, which mirrors, as I said, provisions of the Allied Health Professional Council Act. The bill provides for registration of opticians, foreign opticians, temporary opticians, for holding exams, to the requirement for opticians to follow continuous professional development, and a whole chapter on disciplinary proceedings, setting up a disciplinary tribunal and disciplinary measures. We are generally, on this side of the House, happy with most of the provision of this bill. But there is one aspect of this bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, which no one has spoken about, which does not form part of the object of the bill. It's not in the explanatory memorandum. It's not been dealt with by the Honourable Minister of Health, and it is the establishment of a monopoly for local opticians when it comes to selling spectacles and optical appliances. This bill is creating a monopoly. As from the day the bill is passed, only a registered local optician will be able to sell spectacles and contact lenses in this country. Now, the situation is that today we already have many shops around the island selling glasses, selling optical lenses. The other day, I was in a supermarket. I was in a stationery store, and they were selling reading glasses. Same thing in England, same thing in other countries. Prescribed, +1, +2 reading glasses, you can buy them off the shelf. That will be forbidden as from the day we pass this bill. Now, if we look at section 17 of the bill, this is what it says. No person shall practice optometry. And optometry is defined as including dispensing optical appliances. So no person shall dispense optical appliances, means sell optical appliances, unless he's registered as an optician or temporarily registered as a foreign optician or visiting optician. 2. Nothing in this Act will apply to medical practitioners. Nothing in this Act will prevent a licensed pharmacist from dispensing, selling, or supplying any drugs, or a dealer from supplying ophthalmic frames or lenses in the ordinary course of wholesale business. Now, this section 17, subsection 2, which I have just read, is taken verbatim from section 12 of the Optician Registration Act of 1962, which means that today, the law requiring registration of optician does not apply to medical practitioners. The law dealing with dispensing spectacles does not apply to a dealer who can supply frame and ophthalmic lenses or spectacles in the ordinary course of wholesale business. And a licensed pharmacist can dispense, sell, and supply any drug, including solutions that we use for contact lenses, including drugs that we use when we have irritation in the eyes. But to my surprise, this provision, which is in the bill, the Honourable Minister is proposing to remove that provision. Not a word as to why a doctor who is examining your eyes, who is prescribing your eyesight, can't sell a glass, can't sell spectacles. Not a word about why someone who is in the business of bulk purchasing frames cannot do so anymore. Not a word about why pharmacy, who used to dispense this solution to clean your contact lenses, will no longer be able to do so. Not a word about why this law is being changed to favor the opticians. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, what this law is doing is, under the guise of regulating the sale of optical appliances, effectively giving opticians the exclusive right to sell spectacles and contact lenses. And this is not a coincidence. This is far being an unintended consequence of this Act. I would go as far as to say this is the main purpose of this Act. That is the lobby of one small group in Mauritius. One small group, the Optical Association in Mauritius, who last year brought proceedings against 12 companies and 2 doctors, seeking an order from the court preventing them from selling spectacles, preventing them from selling contact lenses. And on the day of the hearing, they had to withdraw the case because they knew they had no case. They had no case, and now for them it's easier, instead of going to court and seek remedy, it's easier to come to the Honourable Minister of Health and ask him to change the law. Give us this monopoly. Prevent others from selling spectacles. Prevent doctors from selling spectacles. And we're doing it. Today we are asked to vote a law which is going to give monopoly on Mauritian opticians. Mauritian opticians. Because when we look at Section 19 of the bill, Section 19 deals with temporary registration of foreign opticians. Foreign opticians, qualified opticians who are registered in Mauritius. Section 1A to E is taken verbatim from the Allied Health Professional Council Act, and we have no problem with it. They need to have the qualification. But there's a new subsection, subsection 1F. A non-citizen may be temporarily registered as a foreign optician where he, listen to that, where he undertakes not to open a company or body operating in the field of optometry. A foreign optician, he's qualified, he's registered, he can make glasses. We will only register you if you undertake, you're not going to open a shop, you're not going to sell spectacles. Are we acting for the benefit of the public? Or are we acting for the benefit of local opticians? When you have foreigners, qualified foreign opticians come and open shop in Mauritius, wouldn't that create a competition? Wouldn't that have the effect of reducing the price of glasses? And how many honorable members in this house wear glasses? I don't, but my children do. I know it's a rip-off. It's a rip-off because whenever I travel, and many people I know, whenever they travel, they go and buy glasses outside of Mauritius. They'll get it at least 30 to 40% cheaper than what they pay in Mauritius to the optical shops. In India, for example, it's much, now I'd say 80% cheaper than what it is today. But it's not just for temporary foreign opticians. This protectionist policy also applies to temporary registration of visiting opticians. Section 20. So Section 20, temporary registration of visiting opticians. These are opticians who are, maybe the government of Mauritius there's a exchange with the government of India or Pakistan or whoever, and they're asking these opticians to come here as visiting opticians temporary. Very often they have specialist knowledge in the field. Section 20, subsection 3. A visiting optician shall not be involved in the running of any optometry shop. Same like foreign optician, a visiting optician, you can come, you can help, you can test the eyes, you can help Mauritians see better, but you can't be involved in the running of optometry shop. Why? Because we need to protect local opticians. Why do we need to protect local opticians? The Honourable Minister of Finance is in a better position to explain why this is the purpose of this bill, to protect not the interests of consumers, but the interests of local opticians. Mr. Speaker, sir, I do agree that we cannot let anyone, just anybody, to open a shop. But do we need to be an optician to be able to sell spectacles? This is a question I ask myself. Do I need to be a doctor today to own a hospital, to invest in a hospital, to own a private clinic? Or is it sufficient that I have doctors who work for me and do the surgery and do the necessary treatment? Do I have to be a qualified pharmacist today to own a pharmacy? Or is it sufficient that I own the pharmacy and I employ a pharmacist to go and dispense the drug? Do I have to be a cook to own a restaurant, to own a bakery? Do I have to be a mason, a carpenter, to own a construction company?
Wear your glasses there.
So what is so unique, may I say? So what is so unique about opticians? Why is so unique about opticians that only an optician can buy glasses and sell those glasses? In England, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a provision in the law. In England, the Opticians Act 1989 has a provision dealing with the sale and supply of opticals appliances. And section 27(1)(b) reads as follows: any optical appliance, a person shall not sell any optical appliance or zero-powered contact lens unless the sale is effected by or under the supervision of a registered medical practitioner, a registered optometrist, or a registered dispensing optician. Why can't we have the same thing in Mauritius? Why can't a person not sell contact lenses and optical appliances under the supervision of a registered medical practitioner, of a registered optometrist, of a registered dispensing optician? Having these qualified opticians, optometrists, medical practitioner would ensure that the public receive good treatment. It is for the benefit, the health of the public is safeguarded. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, the need to allow competition in this sector is not just to drive down prices. It is also to do with protecting young opticians who do not have the financial means to invest in equipment, to invest in stock of branded glasses. Today we have high-tech equipment which can detect eye disease. Who will invest in those expensive equipment if they are not allowed to recover their investment through the sale of spectacles? We want to be a medical hub. We want to promote medical tourism. We want to attract patients to Mauritius. But in order to do so, we need good doctors. We need good opticians. But we also need investors. And is any investor going to invest in optometry if they are not allowed to sell spectacles? Is this bill going to attract foreign talents, foreign opticians? Talking about foreign opticians, I just mentioned just now that these foreign opticians are not allowed to open shops in Mauritius. They're not allowed to operate in the field of optometry. Do you know what more, Mr. Speaker, sir? Under section 19, subsection 2C, an application for registration as a foreign optician shall be made to the registrar and shall be accompanied by, you know what these two foreign opticians need to give to the registrar? See, documentary evidence that the applicant's expertise in field of optometry is not available in Mauritius. Documentary evidence that local opticians don't have their expertise. Why are we protecting local opticians? Someone asked me whether there is amis d'enfance among the local opticians. I don't understand this government, Mr. Speaker, sir. A few weeks ago, the Honourable Minister of Finance just announced in his budget that foreign students would be allowed to work and compete with local graduates for jobs. Foreign students are allowed to compete with Mauritian graduates for jobs. A fortnight later, same government come and say that a foreign professional foreign optician will not be allowed to compete against a Mauritian optician? Where's the logic? I didn't realize the optician lobby was so strong in Mauritius. But I'd rather think that the government probably did not give enough thought to what it was doing. And the fact, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that this government, this Minister of Health, has circulated two amendments, one on the 29th of June, one on the 30th of June. This in itself tells you that they didn't give enough thought to this bill when it was prepared. But there is more example of where proper thinking was not given to this bill. When you come to section 9, subsection 3, this is what it reads. And all the honourable members read this section, but no one picked it up. Let me read it. Where the chairperson is absent, from a meeting of the council, the chairperson, where he's absent, the chairperson, or he is absent, or in the absence of the chairperson, the vice chairperson shall chair the meeting. So we are voting a law which says, where the chairperson is absent from a meeting, the chairperson shall chair that meeting. And in his absence, the vice chairperson will chair this. And then this reference to vice chairperson is again at section 34 of the bill. Section 34 of, obviously for those who are mumbling, what you should have read is where the chairperson is present at a meeting, he shall he shall chair it, not where he is absent. So if we look at section 34 of the bill, again, execution of documents. No deed, instrument, contract, or other document shall be executed or signed by or on behalf of the council unless it is signed by the chairperson or in his absence by the vice chairperson. Fair enough. But who is the vice chairperson? When we look at section 7, composition of council, subsection A, 1A, a chairperson, and that's it. There's no reference to any vice chairperson, and yet we're voting a bill which is saying that in the absence of the chairperson, we will have a vice chairperson who we don't know who is, who doesn't exist, who the law doesn't provide for. That vice chairperson is going to preside over meetings and sign documents. And we want to come to the House and tell us that this is a properly drafted piece of legislation. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I said before, we are generally in favor of the bill to the extent that it is improving and better regulating the optical sector in Mauritius. However, we would urge the Honourable Minister and the government to go back and consider again this provision relating to the creation of a monopoly in favor of a few opticians in this country. We firmly believe that we need to have a similar provision to what exists in England, where any person can sell optical appliances provided that he does so under the supervision of a registered medical practitioner or a registered optician. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
I'll suspend the sitting for 45 minutes. Clean your glasses.